Hello everybody, my name is KirkpattieCake. I'm an author and robot, and today is the best day of the month. It is Lmiay time. I don't have a theme song, so all we get is some confetti and jays. Yes. So before we get started, as you know, Lmiay for August is now open. So check that in the description below if you're interested in participating in this show. And we just had our first pitch fit ever, which is where indies submit their novels here and I pitch them to the audience. So hopefully readers can find authors. So if you're interested in having your book pitched on this channel, also check out the link down below for Pitch Fit. If you enjoy the kind of content I do on this channel, please remember to like it, share it, subscribe it, and to be part of the conversation in the comments. So without further ado, sorry, I'm just looking at my dog. Without further ado, oh no, he just heard a firework. He doesn't like a lot of things. Fireworks and rain. Like, he'll walk in the rain, but he likes to hide under the table or under a bed when it's actually raining. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, we need to make the setting. If you haven't noticed, we're in an abyss, and an abyss is not really appropriate for Lmiay, so I hate to say it, but we're gonna have to get a little bit risque with this one. Guys, prepare yourself, for you are about to enter the Loin zone. I'm feeling a little bit claustrophobic between these thighs, but that's all that I'm gonna say. Okay, in case you didn't know, the prompt for this month was the use of the word flesh or loin. And that was in honor of the Loin stream, which is the thing we do on this channel where we read a book together and talk about it on stream. So in honor of the Loin stream and the Loin stream crew, the prompt was loin. And I am ready for your guys' stories. I am so excited because we have a total of 6 responses this time, which means this is our most popular episode of Lmiay yet. Of course, February's is the least popular because nobody likes love. Let's just be honest with that. Love is over. Love is dead. Love is canceled. Okay? But when it comes to flesh and violence, it's the most popular. Oh no. What does that say about us, my guys? Okay. So the first one is from Charles Robertson, and it's called The Coroner. I gotta get a hold of myself here. The lines are throwing me off. Okay. Yet another cadaver was to be inspected. This one was in a clean and undamaged state, and, as of yet, unrotten. This is, of course, with one exception, or rather 2. The eyes. They had been slit horizontally with blade, whilst the victim was alive, as the now dried red river flowing from the eyes down the cheeks and into the mouth of John Doe suggested. There should have been much more blood, but all that is not. The face had been bathed by whomever the killer may be. Even the nails, ears, and genitalia washed with great care. Within the eyes, the coroner checked and found only a nausea he had not encountered during the whole career. Rats' heads, torn roughly from their bodies by teeth, likely human teeth, likely as the rats lived. And for eyes, the rats' heads had not the eyes of rats, but of a demonic being which followed and stared into the coroner's. Look, they whispered, in spite of the lack of any way an eye possibly could whisper. Look into the black. Look into me. The coroner dropped the rats' heads and leaned over the cadaver, staring into the slits, which only now did he notice reached endless depths full of various marine life of cephalopodic and shark-like nature. Such creatures should not be possible, not only for their largeness in such minuscule circumference, but too the shapes they were. Familiar their shapes were, and yet unlike any other known to the cosmos. Look, the whisper repeated. Join. The cadaver raised itself to mirror the coroner, waves crashing from its eyes to drown the room. The cadaver and coroner joined hands, palm to palm, and gradually came closer to one another as their flesh fused to form one. From the eye slits came tendrils, which stabbed and anchored into the coroner's pupils, ensuring that he could not escape, even if he did possess the willpower to deny the temptations of the whispers. A bloody, fleshy blob was soon what became of the two. With tooth and hair and lumps scattered across its grotesque surface, the assimilation was complete. The beast had taken its feeding. This story gives me early Clive Barker vibes. Like, I'm thinking, I have only read 2 Clive Barker books, and so you've got the first one and the most recent one that I've read, and this gives me Hellbound Heart style Clive Barker, with the Cenobites, some crazy, grotesque, bad stuff going on. Very interesting. Like, and this is the kind of stuff that I really like because it's really surprising, clearly grotesque, weird stuff going on. I love bizarre stuff. Dude, you have my attention. That was great. I think this is your first time submitting, unless you've submitted under another name. Do you normally write spooky stuff? Either way, that was a lot of fun. The next story is by Matt Dawson. Say it. The man folded his arms. No. Kevin put his hand in his pockets, staring at his feet. There's no way for me to know what you want unless you tell me. The man's white hat flopped as he tilted his head. Kevin shook his head. This was a trap. Anxiety swelled. The man leaned over the counter. Look, I know we have an argument, but you can say it, just this one time. At a series of stakes behind the glass case laid out with care over paper, Kevin pointed. I want some of these. Some of what? Kevin bit his tongue. Fear gripped. He almost broke the rule. He agreed not to say those words for an unlimited supply. Chicken tenders? The man marched to the far end of the case and pulled out thin strips of chicken from under the case. More head shaking. Kevin's stomach growled. He hadn't had lunch and steak was almost impossible to come by. Perhaps it was fine to just say it once. I'll have the tender.
FBM. Put your hand up.
Men in suits swarmed the butcher shops, guns drawn at both the butcher and Kevin, who shook at the sight of lasers dotting his chest. There must be a misunderstanding, gentlemen. This is a simple meat market. The butcher's hands wobbled overhead.
You're wanted for supernatural tax evasion. Put your hands behind your back. We're taking you in.
Kevin scoffed. Man, the government always figures out a way to get their pound of... He choked and gagged, eyes wide. In his place, a side of beef tumbled to the floor. The butcher's gaze danced between the agents and the meat flashing a nervous smile. What a strange fellow. Huh. Matt, you're really good at creating a scene very fast. Like, I'm already invested in this world and I want to know more about this place and these people and what's going on here. Not just, obviously these people are getting arrested for meat, but I'm invested in whatever this world is and I want to know more. You're very, very good at establishing a scene or a universe very quickly. And lots of action, lots of dialogue, lots of character. Like, Kevin is very established. Even the butcher feels established like real people in this short amount of time. I don't even think you used the full 1,000 words. You're just so efficient. Dude, I swear, every freaking month when I read your guys' submissions, I am blown away by the content that you guys send me. All on just funny prompts. Or random prompts in some cases. The next story is by Ken Wells. What's that smell? My wife asked while fanning her nose. I think it's coming from my loins. I said with a fair amount of uncertainty in my voice. Oof, I don't think I can handle that tonight. I'm leaving. Have fun, she said with her palm out circling in the general direction of my loins before she walked out the door. Ken. I pounded my loins vigorously. but found that with each stroke, they just became more sticky and gooey. It was very unpleasant, but it was only my loins and me that evening. What else could be done but work my loins? After pounding, slathering, and everything else necessary to finish the job, the time had finally come. The time had finally come to taste what was created. Something in me told me that I would not want that in my mouth, but I was going to do it anyways. Well, that was my fatal mistake. After enjoying my loin, I relaxed on the couch and turned on the TV to watch some crazy crap. Well, I soon found out that the TV wasn't the only thing spewing out crap tonight. Hours and hours I sat there with my flesh pressed hard into the cold porcelain. My loins betrayed me. It all started with my loins. My clearly expired pork loins. Ken! You knew what you were doing, bro. You knew it. You were messing with the loins. Thank you for that intermission. we had death and we had arrest and we got some loin intermission. Thank you. What a wonderful story. Bro, seriously, thank you. I don't know how anyone could follow that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the other 3 stories that we have tonight. I don't know how you can catch up. Okay. The next story is by Ryan, and she has submitted an excerpt for Ultra Violent Heart. I feel like we're going to go back to serious right after the loins. It's okay. Maybe I won't crack up this time. My brother pushed open the back door around 2 in the morning. I left my art studio to give him a hug, but stopped short when I saw a bloody Vex in his arms. What the hell happened? I grit out. My brother replied, turf stuff? Santos, what the hell? T, you're the medic for the Crows. He needs you. Anger built in my chest. I'm not part of the Crows, and I'm not a medic. My brother glared at me. I snapped up a clean towel from the kitchen counter and poured a glass of tepid water. Pissed off, I followed my twin and seriously injured Vex through the archway of the kitchen and into the dining room. My brother grunted while he sat Vex down on a chair. Bullshit, I replied. I had no formal medical training. The only education that I had was from helping Gabriella study for her classes and retaining the info. It all came easy to me because I studied anatomy in art class and used it for tattooing. But Santos was right. When it came to a crow, I couldn't let them go unattended. They were my brother's familia. But I wasn't a crow. Never would be part of the gang either. I placed the glass of water on the table and slid a wastebasket in front of Vex just in case he puked up whatever was in his stomach. No matter the mess between me and Vex, I wouldn't let him bleed out in my house. Hey, I said, as he sat down on the chair at the table. His white shirt was saturated with blood under his left arm. I need to lift your shirt up, okay? He grimaced and said, do what you gotta do, T. Can you put your hand on my shoulder so that I can see what the hell is going on? He moved slow, like it took all of his energy to shift his arm. I laced my fingers through his to help. The touch familiar, something that he did 100 times in the past. Carefully, I peeled his shirt up. Sticky blood coated my fingertips. He wore 2 t-shirts and a wife beater. There was too much fabric to move around without causing him more pain and risk making the injuries worse. His shirt needed to be cut off. For the time being, all I could do was press a towel against his side and lower his arm back down to hold it in place. While I tried to assess Vex's injuries, Santos came from the back of the house, pulling a large hard case behind him. He lifted it on top of the dining table and cracked it open. Then he yanked the closet door open to pull out a portable table. Thanks, baby brother. Yeah. From the case, I grabbed a sterilized pack of medical scissors and began cutting Vex's shirt off. I swallowed hard. There was an 8-inch slash across his ribs as I pressed sterile gauze to his wound. I said, we're going to move you to a table. You need stitches and fluids. Stat. Once he was horizontal on the table, I placed a rolled-up towel under his neck and elevated his feet. Vex, can you hear me? His eyes tracked my face. Good enough. I checked his vitals. His pupils were dilated and his skin had a sheen to it. Santos, can you run an IV for me? We both pulled latex gloves on. My brother ran an IV of saline into Vex's vein while I grabbed everything that I needed to stitch up the flesh that was gaping on the side of his body. In a gentle voice, I said to him, I'm going to give you something for the pain, then I'll get you stitched up. Vex grabbed my hand and said, I'm sorry. Rolling my eyes, I said, stop it. We can fight later. A smile ghosted across his face. I gave him a shot of Demerol once he had enough fluids working through his vein. When Vex's eyes closed, I got to work stitching his flesh back together. 40 stitches later, and he was good to go. His praying hands tattoo would heal with a scar slicing across it. It was nice to know that my prayers were heard. I could smell the sharp scent of antiseptic soap and bleach from the bathroom. Red and pink swirled down the drains as I stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot. Underneath was puffy and smudged with purple. My hair needed to be brushed, but I didn't care. Vex would be okay, and that's all that mattered to me. After I cleaned up, I pulled the covers down on my bed for him to sleep in. There were 2 other bedrooms in the house, but they were occupied. One was my brother's. The other didn't have a bed, so it was my bed he's convalescent in, and I'd take the couch. It was close to 4:30 in the morning once we got him in bed. I checked his temp and his blood pressure once more before I went on the back porch. I needed a cigarette. I had just lit up a 27, inhaling the spicy taste of the tobacco when Santos put a ham and cheese sandwich in front of me. Eat and drink this. He set a glass of apple juice down. You need some sugar and protein. I don't. Tuesday. Just eat and drink that. He sat next to me in silence, sipping his grape soda, staring into the darkness. I choked down half the sandwich, passed the other half to him. He ate the rest in 3 bites. I never asked, are you okay? Are you injured? My brother held up his right hand, wrapped with thick white gauze. Dropping my shoulders, I said, damn it. I'm sorry. It's all good. Just a flesh wound. There's so much character in this scene. Oh, I'm getting some chills right now. There's so much character in this scene, and the voice in this narrative piece is very strong to me. It feels like Ryan has a lot of background with these characters, and I don't really know how to describe it, but the chemistry between these characters is palpable. The tension in this scene is thick. The flow of the scene is very fast-paced. It's very smooth. The dialogue in the scene is very smooth. The what's the word that I want for this? It's well, the prose. The prose are good too. It's all just smooth and it all just works. Brah. I do have chills though. And I love the chemistry between these characters, both between T and her brother, and then T and Vex, even though Vex is mostly unconscious for most of the time. You can tell in the couple of ways that she references to him, and even his ghost of a smile when she's like, we can fight later. Ooh, you can tell that they've got a loving relationship. Ooh, I will look forward to more of that. All right, the next story is by RSAlessi, and thank you so much for submitting because I always look forward to what you've got to say. And that ends the property tour segment of my presentation, the salesman says, all gleaming white teeth and slicked back hair. Would either of you care for a coffee while I explain the different timeshare options available to you? Fred and Jane exchanged glances. Do we have to pay for the coffee? Another gleaming smile. No, of course not. Everything's included in your free tour and 3-day experience here at our beautiful resort. An experience which can be yours for the next 5 to 20 years, depending on which package you select today. As long as the coffee is free, Jane says. The salesman guides them to a windowless office with 4 chairs and a table. He returns seconds later with steaming mugs and a bowl of sugar packets and creamer. Real cream, Fred observes. 3 kinds of sugar, Jane says. The salesman's grin sharpens. So, tell me about yourselves. What do you do for a living? Jane tears open 4 packets of sugar and dumps them into her coffee. First, I want to be clear on something. You said that we have to listen to you for 2 hours. She pulls out her phone and places it on the table. The display reads 47 minutes and counting. Once we've fulfilled our obligation, we can return to our free 3-day vacation, right? Yes, ma'am. So, occupations? I'm an assassin for hire, Fred says. He pours a second shot of cream into his coffee. And I sell coffins, Jane says. She sips her coffee and smiles. Complementary industries, you know? Fred chuckles. Almost had you there. We sell term life insurance to college graduates. Ah, okay. Do you have any hobbies? Yes. Jane licks her lips. We're swingers. Fred leans in. We throw amazing parties. You're welcome to join us if you can convince us to invest in a timeshare. His eyes rove the salesman's body. That reminds me, Jane says. Is housekeeping included as part of the maintenance fees? The salesman pushes his chair back a few inches. Anything excessive might require an additional charge. Fred squeezes the salesman's knee. Would you describe removal of bodily fluids as excessive? That depends, the salesman choked when Fred's hand slid up to his loin. On the bodily fluids involved. And, could you please remove your hand from my, Fred's eyes widened. Yes. Sorry. Of course. The salesman glanced at Jane's phone. The display read 38 minutes. Do you have children? Yes, Jane says. 6 Yorkies, and we take them everywhere. You allow pets, of course. There is a 2-dog limit in our pet-friendly rooms. 6 Yorkies add up to 1 full-sized dog. Jane pulls her chair closer to the salesman. So, we're within the limit. I'm not sure that's how that works. Please, ma'am, I'd prefer if you not touch me. The salesman takes a deep breath while Jane removes her hand from his chest. Are you interested in water sports, fishing, boating perhaps, or gambling? We have properties in both Atlantic City and Las Vegas. Oh, I love gambling, Jane says. Yes, Fred adds. So many gullible people concentrated in one place. I think it's time to start looking at packages, the salesman says. My manager put together some deals for anyone who signs up today. Let me get him. You said that you have a demo room for us to look at, Fred says. But my manager. I refuse to talk prices until I see what I'm buying, Jane says. Yes, ma'am. The salesman leads Fred and Jane out of the office and down the hall. They crowd behind him while he opens the door. Here it is. He gestures toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a white sand beach and a green gulf beyond. Oh, Jane says and heads for the kitchen. Fred follows her. He pulls a knife from the knife block, long and narrow, the kind used to fillet fish. This is a real nice knife. Jane runs a thumb over the edge. Sharp, too. Oops. She sucks her sliced flesh. Show us the bathroom, Fred says. The salesman hesitates in front of the French doors he just flung open. Would you rather see the balcony? Nope. The bathroom, Fred says. Okay. The salesman guides them to the master suite. As you can see, the bathroom features a double sink, a private water closet, glass enclosed showers, and a separate soaker tub. Not all units will include... Could you sit in the tub for us? Fred points at the tub with the fillet knife. When our guests come to visit, we want them to be comfortable. You're taller than us. The salesman nods. Okay. The tub, generously sized, fits him with legs extended. Jane claps her hands. Perfect. Now that you're so comfortably settled, are you sure you don't want to sell us your kidney? What? No! Fred admires the knife's edge. Does this building have an ice machine? The salesman scrambles out of the tub and backs toward the door. If you'll excuse me. 5 minutes later, Jane pulls out her phone to check the timer. I really liked him. Much better than the fellow from the Hyatt. Agreed. Fred sets the knife on the marble sink. He's not coming back. Let's go enjoy our free vacation. See, you're talking about Loins and then we go straight into this thing. Though I am very interested in this Fred and Jane. This feels like it could be a bigger story. Maybe not a novel, but it could be a novella because I'm kind of invested either in them as, I don't know, without it being just as easy. Are they really an assassin and a coffin maker is the thing. This actually reminds me a lot of, so you take, obviously Bret Easton Ellis writes about elitist culture and elites and they're super rich and psychopathy, but this kind of makes me think of Bret Easton Ellis, but more like the Florida vacationer couples version of a Bret Easton Ellis psychopath. But I really like the mood. I like there's some funny dialogue in here. The mood is just there. The oof. I know that I've got you under a crunch, but I can so see this just playing a little bit more with a little bit more description to make these rooms or to make these people. But I really like the vibe of these characters. And this scene was very fun. Of course, we're all sick here, so whatever, right? It's okay. Okay, and the last story of the month is from Aeternis. Where do they find these things? Spitz watched his little ship's light play across the 10-meter-high letters visible against the Dark Harbor's coat of inky light-absorbing paint as he lined up with the docking bay. For some reason, vessels of ill repute always seemed to have the most unfortunate of names, and the one which gave its name to this dark harbor built into the cavernous belly was no different. Who in all creative hell names a ship Richard LBRY? Kuzmin grunted a diplomatic non-answer. His eyes darted between his console and the forward view panel. The big man had already set his ship's booby traps and strapped an impressive phase beam pistol to his hip in preparation for boarding LBRY. Spitz sighed. Relax, buddy. Business is business. We'll be in and out in an hour. The greasy little man standing just inside the airlock wasn't armed with anything but a smile, and the strips of cloth which passed as clothes on his two female companions hid nothing. Certainly not weapons. Can we help you? Spitz hadn't been told to expect a welcome party. Taking a cue from Spitz's tone of voice, Kutzman's gun leapt out of its holster and leveled on the little man's face when the trio didn't move. Though the two women flinched, the man didn't. Gentlemen, there is no need for that. I'm only here to help. We don't need your help. Spitz's hand fell on his much less impressive but still deadly handgun. Despite himself, he had to appreciate the copious display of flesh used to bait their welcome. The two women were probably prostitutes, bright powder junkies, or both. But whoever had done their flesh sculpts had been good enough to make their perfect curves almost seem natural. Old Masozi, that's your client, isn't it? Sorry to say, he's dead. The man didn't sound very sorry, and the girls tittered as if it was a joke. Most likely, this was the man's very murderer. It could be like that on a dark harbor. Then we'll be getting off this corroded. Kuzmin knew better than to finish that sentence. Several men armed with an assortment of poorly maintained weapons had appeared out of the gloom in both directions. Spitz sighed, moving his hands away from his gun. He dealt with this sort of outlaw before. What are you moving, and where is it going, and what's the pay? The greasy man laughed. Excellent. With the slightest wave of his hand, he caused the bristling array of weapons to vanish. Follow me, and I will show you all three. Their guide, who introduced himself as Sirdar and didn't bother to pretend that he remembered the names of either of the women, led the pair to what passed for Richard LBRY's main concourse. The wide, low-ceilinged avenue running down the spine of the old hulk looked more like a metal-eating insect nest than a habitat for humans, and most of the light came from the provocative holographical signage marking each door. Spitz, from long experience with such places, avoided focusing on any of the signs or thinking about whether the things portrayed on them were anatomically possible, even with extensive flesh sculpting. Kuzmin, unfortunately, had yet to learn that lesson yet. For enough credits, anything brewed in Pirate's imagination could be, and would be, made real at a dark harbor. Serdar led the little group into a dimly lit cantina and to a corner table. Discordant sounds that were probably supposed to be music shrieked over the rhythmic pounding beat. A trio of dancers whose bodies were covered by nothing thicker than the smoke that wafted up from several types of an inhaled narcotic cavorted on a central stage. And Spitz took a seat with his back to them and bodily hauled Kuzmin down next to him. Serdar nudged his two companions aside before sitting down opposite the two spacers, and the girls scurried off into the hazy gloom. Masozi offered you 50,000, didn't he? He had to almost shout to be heard over the jarring music. I'll offer you 60 to move my goods, plus a couple of souvenirs of the merchandise. Same destination, same timetable. Spitz nodded. Moving narcotics wasn't honest work, but it kept them flying. Make it 70 and forget the samples. Yeah, Kuzmin echoed. We aren't users. Serdar looked between the two men blankly for a moment. Then he leaned back and clapped his hands. Oh, I see. No. I'm in a different business. Spitz realized with horror exactly what sort of business Serdar was in, but Kuzmin blinked in confusion. What business is that? Serdar looked up and smiled as the two girls returned, one carrying a tray of mugs and another an armload of slate computers. Late Masozi and the other narco-chemists sell illusions. He gestured to the returning women. I deal in more tactile diversions. We don't move chattel Sadair. Spitz tried to keep his eyes on Seder as the girls leaned down to deposit their burdens on the table. Despite their using every tactic in the book to attract wandering eyes, he almost succeeded. The women looked up only briefly, then shrugged and stepped back from the table. Chattel. You insult me and my hard-working team, sir. Serdar pointed to the pair. My girls are making their fortune in these tough times the best way they know how. It's quite brave, I think. Spitz nudged Kuzmin, who had been smiling at the buxom girl on the side of the table. Come on, buddy. We're leaving. Before he could stand up, the cool muzzle of some sort of cartridge gun pressed against the back of Spitz's neck. By his partner's sudden stiff posture, he imagined the same thing had happened to Kuzmin as well. I'm sorry, gentlemen, Serdar smiled, taking a sip from his mug. Were you under the impression that you had a choice? This also feels like it's gone. There are a couple of stories in here that feel like they're part of a bigger universe, and this feels like it's a big universe that is possibly already developed. There's possibly more to this. I'm curious if Aeternis has more in this universe. I like the writing style, the action moves, the voices are great. Dude, this was fun to read. I want to know more about this universe too, and the use of the specific lingo that references specific, like, procedures or things in this futuristic space universe. They were entered in so flawlessly, and they were entered in such a way that you knew what it was talking about without having an exact description of those things. Very masterful. Spitz and Kuzmin also seem like a very interesting pair. I want to know more about them, because I am down for more. Like, oh my gosh, you guys. So that was all of the stories. Oh my gosh. I sound like a total derp. I am so impressed. Every time. I enjoyed these. So many of these I want to know more about. You guys are such great writers, and I want to know more about your universes that you've either created or you're currently creating. Freaking A. And I hope that you guys that are listening to this also got some enjoyment out of this. Everybody that's submitted, if they have a landing page or a social media website to send you to, it is down in the description below. So follow them if you like them. Hang out, watch what they do, because I certainly am. And thank you so much for being here. Again, if you like this kind of content, maybe consider joining for the next I was going to say Loin stream. I'm looking at these beefy thighs right here. Maybe consider submitting for the next Lmiay. Subscribe to the channel, like, share for more, and building up new authors. You guys all deserve attention for just brilliant minds here. For real. I don't know what else to say. I guess without anything else to say, have a good weekend. And don't die. Happy loining.
The only people who should come are those who want to meet their monsters.
If this is what Agatha wants, I don't know how we can even dispute it.
Show me your teeth.
I change lives, baby.
And I end them. Sweetheart, no bargains hold. Only fools know restraint.
Only losers lose! If your scissors are dull, may I recommend sharpening them with leather?
I think I hit you.
Mima says I must have a guardian angel.
To enter the ring but abstain from playing is suicidal. Your virtue makes you nothing but a liability.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.